Hello, Brett Larson again, and as promised, this is part two of my project on curriculum compacting, where I will talk about compacting that I did in the past and what I plan to do in the future. So, my previous compacting experience, when I taught with the Madrid Community School District, I was a 8th grade reading and English teacher at the junior high there. Um, the way the materials for their curriculum are set up were really nice. All the tests that they took, you took them on the computer, on the internet, and when you were done, it would tell you your results, like you were proficient on these skills, you were not proficient in these skills. Well, we decided to just use that end of unit test as our pre-test, um, and then when the students would take it before we started the unit, when they were done, they'd get a checklist like this with all the skills from the unit, and they would check which ones they were proficient in and which ones they were not proficient in. We would then use that information for compacting the curriculum. Um, all the units are obviously centered around essential learnings. So when we were planning a lesson for the day, it would be around one of the like essential learnings that are kind of listed here. If the students were not proficient on the pre-test, they'd be working with the general class. We usually read a story together or in groups, and they would work on some different like worksheets or graphic organizers related with the skill. If students were proficient on the on the pretest, they showed mastery. They would create an artifact centered around the essential learning we were working on for that day. This was the rubric that they would use. It was really kind of a basic rubric, but it was for students that, like I said, had already shown mastery. So if like we were working on author's purpose, for an example, um, they could choose what they were doing for the reading. They could read what we were reading in class, like what the general class was reading. They could choose like their independent reading book. They could choose some other short stories from recommendation. And then after they did their reading, they would create their own artifact with based on the rubric here. And then at the end of the unit, each student would have a portfolio. The portfolio would contain um, like the worksheets or graphic organizers that we use in class for the skills that they weren't proficient on, along with their artifacts, um, and that would put together the whole unit for them. So each student's portfolio was different. So I now teach 7th grade reading and English at Dallas Center Grimes. Um, we have different materials and just a different philosophy and stuff. So um, I was trying to brainstorm ways that we could compact the some of the curriculum and things that we do there. As I mentioned at Madrid, we had the test that they took online where it would tell them right away, what skills they were proficient in and what they weren't proficient in. Well, we don't have that at Dallas Center Grimes. So I was trying to think of ways that I could have a pre-assessment to see what kids were what kids were proficient in skills before we worked on them. So this is the idea that I came up with the help from my PLC. So our first unit of the year, we focus on plot and characters. It's just a really basic short story unit. Um, just kind of focus on some real basic things to get kids back into the swing of things with fiction. Um, at the end of the unit, it kind of culminates with them reading Raymond's Run, and then they have an assessment that they take on plot and characters. And you can see I have the assessment here. Um, the first 6 questions are all about um, plot, characters, and there's some conflict stuff in there which goes along with the plot. So I had the idea of adding on a theme question to the end of the assessment um, to use that as a pre-assessment for their understanding of theme. So we don't talk about theme at all in this unit, but just threw that question on there to see which students already had a mastery of theme. So then when we go into our next fiction unit, which is on theme, we'll have an idea of what students already know, what theme is, how to find a good theme, what methods they can use. And we can use that information to compact the curriculum for students that have already shown mastery of it. And I figured I would just use the same rubric for students who have shown mastery of theme. Um, they will again just create their own artifacts. Can work in small groups, can work independently. They can use, we have several great short stories that we read for theme. They can use those to create their artifacts. There are some that we will require them to read, but there will be some, where they can have choice, where they can create an artifact for a theme, like with their independent reading book or another short story that they've read. And again, we'll use that to develop a student portfolio for the unit on theme. I'm really excited to get started on this. I think a lot of kids will really enjoy it. Especially if they've shown mastery, and I'm excited to see what they can create for artifacts for the ones that have already mastered theme. And then going from there, we thought we could just kind of use the same formula for the rest of the year of pre-assessing the upcoming unit essential learnings on the assessment of the current unit. So like I said, the first unit was on plot and characters, but we would sneak in a question about theme as a pre-assessment for the upcoming unit. We thought we would only use this with fiction. We think we do a pretty good job already of differentiating nonfiction by using texts of higher lexile and some more challenging texts for students that are already shown proficiency, that are pretty solid readers. Plus, we didn't want them to get burnt out on having compacted everything for the year, getting worn out on having to come up with ideas for their own artifacts and stuff like that. So we're just going to use it with fiction. Like I said, I'm really excited to get started with this and see what we come up with. Thanks for listening.